Now, this is many times not the situation. A lot of victims of sexual exploitation in particular face a lot of stigma when after their trafficked experiences. A lot of them are either facing stigma or they fear the face of stigma. And so a lot of times when they come back to their communities, they are ostracized or they feel that they cannot reconnect with their communities because they feel ashamed. Sometimes they come back pregnant. And so sometimes they feel that they have to cut off all ties and move to another location. Also, a lot of victims of sexual exploitation have a lot of very long-term psychological or physical negative impacts on them, which will affect their ability to have a happy, productive life going forward.
Often when young men and women are trafficked into sexual exploitative situations, after they come out of that experience, they may decide independently to go back into that sector. And I worked with many young women, for example, who decided independently, after having been rescued, that they were now not wanting to go and get what was expected that they should do, which was go and get a regular job. They were like, well, we have worked for 2 or 3 years paying off our debts, and now we know how to earn money. And they preferred to go back out in the sex sectors and earn money for themselves.
Also, there's a lot of situations where the government or NGOs try to provide support to victims of sexual trafficking. But a lot of these cases, in the hopes that these victims would be able to get back on their feet and be able to lead productive or happy lives. But a lot of times the situation is such that the victim is not willing or able to accept those social services. For example, if a social service or assistance being provided is vocational training or an apprenticeship so that the victim can be able to have employment opportunities. A lot of times in some of the cases that we profiled, the women were either pregnant or had physical disabilities from the difficulties that they endured during the time that they were trafficked, or they have very young children to take care of and were not able to accept these, were not in a position to be able to take on these social services or assistance that was provided to them. So this thinking that, oh, we just provide them with some social services and they'll be able to be back on their feet and be able to have productive, economically beneficial lives is not always the case.
So it's really important to understand, what does happy ending mean? It's not that straightforward. As I've mentioned before, a lot of the survivors of trafficking for sexual exploitation have experienced lots of other types of abuse. Psychological abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and so whatever decisions they make, they need to be helped in those situations.
The most important thing is to make sure that the victims are provided with a wide range of options in terms of the services and assistance that governments or NGOs can provide, and that they're fully empowered to take on whichever services or assistance that they feel is appropriate for themselves without having any of these being forced upon them.
Often, victims of trafficking for sexual exploitation do not want to be living in a shelter, do not want to be living in an enclosed space. They want to be free, and they want their status to be regularized in the country in which they've migrated to, and they want to have the right to work.